In life, we often chase recognition. We want to be seen, we want to be praised, we want others to notice what we have, what we've done, and what we've become. But this craving for validation, this desire to show off, only reveals the emptiness that lies within. A person who is truly strong does not need to shout. A person who is truly wise does not need to prove. And a person who is truly at peace does not need to display their peace. You see, the tree that bears fruit does not make noise. It simply grows quietly, patiently, and with purpose. The most powerful movements in nature are silent. The rising of the sun, the flowing of water, the blooming of a lotus. In the same way, your growth does not need an audience. Your value is not in what others see, but in who you become when no one is watching. The path of the martial artist is not to impress, it is to discipline. It is to polish the self like a mirror, to remove the dust of ego and pride. The more you learn, the more you realize how little there is to boast about. Humility is the true sign of mastery, and only the one who has nothing to prove can truly be free. So I invite you now to reflect on this. Why do you need to show? Who are you trying to convince? And what would it feel like to simply be? In the modern world, many people are conditioned to believe that their worth is defined by how much attention they can attract. Whether it is on social media, in professional environments, or among friends, there is a constant pressure to demonstrate success, intelligence, beauty, or power. Yet, true strength does not behave this way. True strength is silent. It does not demand to be seen. It does not shout for recognition. It simply is, steady and unmoved, whether in the spotlight or in the shadows. Like the roots of a tree that lie hidden beneath the surface, it holds everything together but never asks for acknowledgement. This kind of strength comes not from external validation, but from deep internal cultivation. It is built in solitude, in quiet discipline, and in the continuous process of overcoming one's weaknesses. A person who possesses this strength does not walk into a room seeking to dominate or impress. Instead, they carry a stillness, a presence that speaks louder than words. Their confidence is not loud because it does not arise from comparison. It comes from knowing who they are without the need to explain themselves. There is a reason why the greatest masters, in any tradition, often appear humble and unassuming. They are not interested in showing off their skills, because their identity is not tied to being perceived as superior. Their strength is evident in the way they move, the way they breathe, and the way they respond to life, not in what they wear, what they drive, or how many people admire them. When strength is real, it is no longer loud. The loudness is often a mask for insecurity. The more unsure someone is of their value, the more likely they are to seek ways to prove it to others. But proof is not required for the truth. The truth stands on its own. True strength is forged through struggle, through the unseen battles a person fights within themselves. It is the ability to stay calm when chaos surrounds you. It is the power to keep moving forward without needing applause. It is in the way you carry responsibility without complaint, in how you choose integrity when no one is watching. These qualities cannot be shown off because they are invisible to the untrained eye. They are subtle, quiet forces that do not need to perform in order to exist. In the teachings of martial arts, the goal is not to defeat others, but to master oneself. This mastery requires discipline, patience, and humility. It demands that the practitioner turns inward, facing their fears, their pride, their anger, and their desires. In this process, the individual becomes aware of how much energy is wasted on trying to impress. They learn that the pursuit of showing off is a distraction from true growth. Every moment spent trying to be seen is a moment not spent deepening the foundation of one's character. Nature is full of examples that reflect this truth. The mountain does not boast about its height. The ocean does not announce its depth. The sun rises and sets without seeking praise. These forces are powerful not because they try to be, but because they simply are. In the same way, a person who has cultivated inner strength does not need to demonstrate it constantly. Their strength becomes part of their nature. It is visible in how they treat others, how they handle adversity, and how they remain grounded amidst praise or criticism. This strength is quiet because it does not depend on reaction. It does not need to defend itself or seek attention. It finds peace in doing what is right, not what is popular. It does not conform to the noise of the world, but moves in harmony with its own rhythm. In silence, it listens more than it speaks. In stillness, it observes more than it reacts. And through this discipline, it becomes unshakable. When someone understands the value of silence, they stop wasting energy on proving themselves. They no longer feel the need to broadcast their achievements. Instead, they focus on substance over appearance, depth over display. They become aware that greatness is not about how loud your voice is, but how strong your presence is without speaking. They begin to appreciate the profound impact of being grounded, of being real, of being consistent even when no one is looking. True strength is often mistaken for weakness in a world that values noise over depth. But over time, the quiet ones reveal their power, not because they suddenly speak, but because the truth of their character can no longer be ignored. Their silence begins to teach, their actions begin to inspire, and their presence begins to shift the atmosphere. They no longer chase recognition, because they have something far greater than the approval of others. They have the strength of knowing themselves. Ego is a subtle and deceptive force. It can dress itself in many forms: confidence, ambition, pride, or even false humility. At its core, ego craves recognition. It wants to be important. It wants to be acknowledged. It thrives on comparisons and achievements, and it constantly seeks to place itself above others. But in doing so, ego becomes the very thing that prevents growth. When the ego takes the lead, learning stops. Progress halts, the mind becomes closed, and the heart becomes hardened. There is no space for wisdom when the ego believes it already knows everything. True growth begins with humility. Humility is not about thinking less of oneself. It is about thinking of oneself less. It is about making space within the mind and heart to receive, to observe, and to understand without judgment or pride. When a person is humble, they become like an empty cup, ready to be filled, ready to absorb knowledge, and open to transformation. Without humility, even the most gifted individuals can remain stagnant. They may impress others for a time, but they will never evolve beyond the limitations of their own pride. In the traditional teachings of the Shaolin Temple, students are taught that mastery begins with surrendering the ego. Before a student can wield power, they must learn to serve. Before they can become teachers, they must become learners. This is not a punishment, it is a path to refinement. The ego resists repetition, resists correction, and resists silence. But it is precisely in those moments of repetition, correction, and silence that refinement occurs. Humility allows the student to endure these moments without resentment. It allows them to see correction as a gift and repetition as a tool for transformation. The ego often whispers that one is already good enough. It says, "Why should you listen to others? You know better." This voice can be comforting because it feeds the desire to feel superior, but it is also the voice that leads people into mediocrity. It prevents self-examination and discourages feedback. The humble person, on the other hand, welcomes feedback, not because they enjoy being criticized, but because they value the truth more than their pride. They understand that growth is more important than being right. They are willing to be wrong today in order to be wiser tomorrow. In relationships, ego builds walls while humility builds bridges. Ego demands to be understood, to be respected, to be followed. It wants to win arguments and be seen as powerful, but humility seeks to understand first. It listens before speaking. It chooses peace over victory. This is not weakness, it is strength under control. A humble person is not easily offended because their identity is not rooted in how others see them. They do not need constant validation because they are anchored in something deeper than praise. In the practice of martial arts, an inflated ego is dangerous. It blinds the practitioner to their own vulnerabilities. It creates overconfidence, which leads to carelessness. The humble martial artist, however, remains alert. They do not underestimate others. They are aware of their strengths, but they are equally aware of their limitations. This balance keeps them grounded. It allows them to grow steadily, step by step, without skipping the necessary process of discipline and patience. They are not in a hurry to prove anything, because they are focused on improving everything. Humility also invites connection with others. When ego is present, people become competitors. There is a constant comparison. Who is better, smarter, faster, more successful? But when humility enters, competition transforms into cooperation. People become allies on the journey of growth. Instead of tearing each other down, they lift each other up. They learn from one another, share their experiences, and support each other's progress. This kind of environment nurtures true development, both individually and collectively. The ego is loud and restless. It always needs to be fed. It seeks applause, recognition, and superiority, but humility is quiet and content. It does not demand attention. It finds fulfillment in progress, not performance. It values depth over display, and in this quietness it becomes powerful. The more one lets go of the need to be seen as great, the more room there is to actually become great. The less one needs to impress others, the more energy is available to master oneself. This is the paradox of humility. By lowering oneself, one rises. By emptying oneself, one becomes full. And by releasing the ego, one begins to truly grow. Self-worth is a quiet knowing. It is the deep and steady realization that who you are is enough, not because of what you own, what you've achieved, or how others perceive you, but simply because you exist with intention, effort, and awareness. In a world that constantly encourages people to seek validation from outside themselves, self-worth becomes an internal revolution. It is the silent defiance against the noise of judgment, comparison, and approval seeking. It is choosing to root your value in being rather than appearing, in substance rather than perception. From an early age, many are taught to seek recognition. Good grades, applause, trophies, promotions, likes, compliments. All of these are used as signals that you are doing well, that you matter. And while feedback can be useful, it becomes harmful when your sense of worth is chained to it. When you depend on others to feel valuable, you place your self-worth in their hands. You become reactive to their opinions, their moods, their approval or disapproval. Your internal compass is replaced with a mirror, and instead of growing from within, you begin to perform for the outside. True self-worth cannot be given by anyone. It cannot be taken away either. It is discovered through presence and reflection. It is built when you honor your word to yourself, when you do what is right even when no one is watching, when you continue to grow not to prove anything, but because you value your own potential. It is revealed when you face your fears, when you make peace with your imperfections, and when you stop trying to be someone else. The journey to self-worth is not about becoming more in the eyes of the world. It is about becoming more yourself. There is a great strength in the one who no longer needs to show off, not because they lack achievements, but because they no longer need them to feel whole. This strength allows you to walk into a room without trying to dominate it. It gives you the freedom to stay silent when others boast, not out of weakness, but because your peace is not up for trade. When you are no longer performing for acceptance, your actions come from clarity, not desperation. Your choices become cleaner because they are not filtered through the question of what others will think. Self-worth also creates stability in the face of failure. If your value is not tied to success, then mistakes become learning experiences instead of identity crises. You can stumble without collapsing. You can lose without becoming lost, because your core remains untouched by the fluctuations of circumstance. This is why some people remain calm in storms, while others panic at the smallest shift. The difference lies in where their worth is anchored. If it's anchored externally, then the winds of life will toss them around. But if it's anchored internally, they remain steady no matter how fierce the winds become. One of the most profound results of genuine self-worth is that it changes how you treat others. When you are secure in yourself, you no longer feel threatened by the success or beauty or strength of someone else. There is no need to compete or compare, because your value is not in question. You can celebrate others without feeling smaller. You can listen without needing to speak over. You can lead without needing to dominate. This creates more authentic relationships, where connection is based on respect and truth, rather than ego and status. Many people wear masks every day, projecting an image they believe will earn them respect or love. But behind the mask often lies fear, the fear of being seen as not enough. Real self-worth requires removing that mask. It requires facing yourself with honesty and choosing to accept who you are while still striving to become better. This does not mean settling for less or avoiding growth. It means building from a place of love rather than lack. It means understanding that you are already worthy of respect, care, and dignity, not because of what you do, but because of who you choose to be in each moment. In the discipline of martial arts and the teachings of mindfulness, the practitioner is encouraged to know themselves deeply, not just their strengths, but their weaknesses, not just their confidence, but their insecurities. Through this process, they develop an unshakable self-respect, not one born from comparison, but from honesty, effort, and discipline. They realize that the opinion of the outside world is only a reflection, not a foundation. And so they train not to impress, but to evolve. When you cultivate self-worth from within, you become untouchable in the truest sense, not because you are above others, but because you are no longer beneath yourself. You stop asking others to validate your journey because you are already walking it with integrity. You no longer chase empty praise because you are already full. The noise of the world fades, and in that silence you hear the quiet but powerful voice that says, "I am enough." The need to show off reveals a lack of inner peace. When a person feels calm and grounded within themselves, there is no urgency to seek attention or approval from others. They do not need to constantly highlight their accomplishments, their possessions, or their strengths, because their identity is not built upon the reactions of the outside world. However, when the mind is unsettled and the heart is restless, there arises a compulsion to display. To show, to prove, to be seen. This desire is not a celebration of success. It is a signal that something deeper is missing. Inner peace is not something that can be faked. It cannot be mimicked by a calm appearance or soft-spoken words. It is a state of being where one is no longer in conflict with oneself. It comes from acceptance, discipline, clarity, and truth. It requires facing your own fears and insecurities and choosing not to run from them. When this peace is absent, the individual often turns outward in search of balance, hoping that attention, admiration, or envy from others will fill the void. But this never leads to fulfillment. It only deepens the hunger for more validation. To show off is to cry out for acknowledgement. It is a performance for the eyes of others, often disconnected from the real state of the performer. A person may boast of their knowledge, their success, their discipline, but if these things are used as shields to protect a fragile sense of self, then they become distractions rather than achievements. The stronger the need to be noticed, the more it reveals that the person does not yet feel whole without external confirmation. They seek applause not to celebrate, but to silence the doubt that echoes inside. When the mind is restless, it cannot be still in silence. It cannot be satisfied with simple presence. It needs movement, noise, distraction. This is why people often seek attention, not because they enjoy being seen, but because they fear being ignored. But peace teaches the opposite. Peace allows you to be unseen and still content. It allows you to exist without display, to act without the desire for reaction, to grow without needing an audience. Inner peace gives you permission to move quietly through life, to let your actions speak without the need to raise your voice. A peaceful person is not concerned with being better than others. They are not driven by the need to win approval. They are focused on alignment, on living in harmony with their values, their purpose, and their truth. They do not hide their strengths, but they do not parade them either. They trust that those who truly see will recognize what matters, and those who do not were never meant to. This removes the pressure to perform and allows the person to live more authentically. The energy that was once used to maintain an image can now be used to deepen practice, develop skills, and nourish the soul. When someone shows off, they are often unaware of what they are truly seeking. They may believe they want admiration or respect, but what they often long for is peace. Peace from doubt, peace from fear, peace from the feeling that they are not enough unless others say they are. But peace cannot be given through applause. It must be cultivated through practice, through stillness, reflection, and the willingness to live without masks. Only when a person is able to sit with themselves in silence and feel whole can they begin to let go of the need to impress others. In the tradition of self-mastery, the inward path is always prioritized over the outward. Achievements are honored not for how they look, but for what they cost in terms of growth, discipline, and transformation. True practitioners know that the reward is not the recognition. It is the person you become through the process. The journey itself is the value. When the goal is peace, the desire to show off naturally fades. The quiet becomes more appealing than the noise. The inner alignment becomes more valuable than the outer applause. It is easy to become distracted by the desire to be noticed, especially in a world that constantly rewards visibility over depth. But visibility does not equate to value, and attention does not equal peace. Many are praised and still feel hollow inside. Many are followed and still feel lost. This is because they chased attention before they found themselves. Peace is not found in how many people look at you, but in whether you can look at yourself with calm and respect. It is in the quiet certainty that you are living truthfully, regardless of who is watching. Letting go of the need to show off does not mean hiding your light. It means allowing your light to shine without demanding that others see it. It means being fully present in your own journey, trusting that your value is inherent, not earned through display. It means shifting from seeking to proving to simply being, and in that being you begin to experience the depth, the stillness, and the quiet joy that only inner peace can provide. When we release the need to show off, we begin to return to ourselves. We step away from the noise of performance and into the silence of self-awareness. True strength, true worth, and true peace do not scream for attention. They are cultivated quietly through discipline, humility, and alignment with our inner values. The ego will always tempt us to seek the spotlight, to prove, to compare, to impress. But the path of wisdom teaches us that what is most powerful often moves in stillness, what is most meaningful often grows unseen, and what is most valuable is already within us. The journey is not about being seen. It's about becoming real,